Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I'm founder and CEO Jim West, and right next to me, I have Sergey Chubarov. Right? Did I get that right?
Some kind of. Yep.
Some kind of way. Well, this gentleman right here is a Microsoft MVP. He's trained for multiple organizations like EC Council, because if you know anything about EC Council, you know they're globally famous, well recognized, certified ethical hacker. And speaking of hacking, this guy's got a whole long laundry list of very prominent pen testing certs. So he's got the OSCP, the OSEP. Of course, CEH, he's got CPENT, LPT, ECPPT, and a couple of others. We could probably go
Yeah.
on for
I,
another
I
minute or
wonder if you
so.
want to name them all. It will take like the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, it would take a long time to name them all. So he's here with us today. Sergey, can you talk us a little bit about, with all these different things, these accolades and the things that you're involved with? I know some of your specialties are with cloud security, which we'll get to in a minute, but could you kind of take us through the day of a life of a Microsoft MVP and maybe explain to people what that is?
Okay. So, welcome everyone. Hello from my side as well. And yeah, Jim next to me from on the left-hand side, at least on my screen. What I usually do, I work with customers as the consultant or as an instructor, as also Jim mentioned. But when I also work with instructor, especially if I have like a chance to work with companies privately, I'm trying to solve their like problems and issues. And it really depends. Because like I really like some offensive security, as you mentioned about OSCP, and that's kind of. I also we met with Jim at EC Council in the EC Council context at the hacking conference. So I really like threat management. I like pen test and so forth. But quite often, companies they concern about other things. For example, compliance. Like it or not, but you have to be compliant. And to become compliant, they need to like do this, and also pen test might be a part of that. So to stay compliant, they need to do a regular pen test, but also they need to implement like DLP policy. They need to label data, classify their data, make label their data, implement also threat protection policies, and so forth. So quite often, there are concerns related to like some obligations they have from government, from industries. And that raised a number of questions. Again, as I said before, it might be starting from information protection that we need to implement DLP and classify data to really that they need to protect from cyber attacks and so forth.
Mhm.
That's from like a data, and so I solve those questions. I need to take the customer concerns, discuss with them what exactly they want, how they want it to implement, hear about limitations, what like because also sometimes we need to it like there's a perfect solution from vendor, but we hit some kind of obstacles because of the budget, because of the customer infrastructure, because of the nature of the business where we cannot, for example, that maybe there's a perfect service that solves customer problem, but this service located in the cloud and the customer cannot go to the cloud because of the nature of the customer business. So it really depends. So I'm solving the problems with of customers with cybersecurity. If you're, but also you mentioned about MVP, what it means, and how it has what does it mean, how to become maybe as well. Yeah, but you didn't ask how to become. So the idea of Microsoft MVP is that first of all that we should know Microsoft stuff pretty well. That's the first idea. Second one is that we share that we just bring into community. So we share our knowledge, we share our experience with community. We don't charge for this specifically. Of course, we still work for money, but at the same time, we spend additional time to share with community. It might be speaking the conference, writing blog post, recording webcast. At like what we are doing now, I can say, hey, I help community to learn more about Microsoft stuff as well.
Mhm.
So help community, and the key idea here. Quite often, people that want to become MVP, they ask questions like, "Okay, I recorded 5 webinars, I wrote a blog post, and I develop some kind of maybe let's say plugin for one of the Microsoft services. Is it enough? Can I get MVP now?" And usually those guys, they don't get MVP anytime soon. But the idea of MVP is that you just share your knowledge, your experience, your passion with community, and don't ask for anything back. And eventually, you'll be awarded with this. Of course, someone needs to nominate you, like another MVP or Microsoft employee, but it is something that someone nominates you, and but you just continue to share stuff without waiting for this award.
Yeah, it's just like in sports, you just play the game at your best of your abilities and keep performing, and eventually the MVP title will come to you, right? That's a good way to look at it.
I guess so. I'm not that good at that kind of sport.
No worries, no worries. So another one of your specialties is cloud security. So let's get into this because everything is either in the cloud, migrating to the cloud, or people thinking maybe I made the wrong decision going to the cloud. Maybe I need to come bring some stuff back into my own physical environment. So let's just talk. What are some of the top security concerns for cloud as of right now? Now that we're towards the end of 2025.
Okay, so I would say now we are getting back to basics compared to how it was in the beginning. Compare how it was a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
When we so long time ago, when we were mostly work on premises, company had like some kind of mindsets about trusted network. Everything inside of the network is mine, is trusted. I know that, and users work for my company. I genuinely trust them, but everything outside is not may not be good, and so we need to be protected from that. Then they start to move to the cloud, and their policies they raise lots of concerns. Like, okay, if I trust something that I have on premises in my network, and now I'm moving data away from my network, moving out of my network, how the hell I can protect it?
Hmm.
Because based on the old mindsets, it was like that. And so it also stopped companies. So in the beginning, it stopped companies to move to the cloud, and then they realized, okay, there's such a big pressure from the cloud, and everything goes to the cloud. So we need to like reconsider our current policies, and they just start to use cloud more and more. But then over time, they still try to find a balance between their existing strategies that they use for a long time on premises and try to adapt it for the cloud. So then, when companies start to work more in the cloud, they start to deploy more resource in the cloud. We realize that number of cloud attacks increased, and more people use the cloud, the more problems we may have because. For example, if I start to deploy hundreds of virtual machines, I may forget to like disable the port 22, for example, for SSH. If I use if I use database in the cloud, potentially this database can be accessed by someone else in not from my company. And so now it will become really important to properly configure it and govern the resource you deploy in the cloud. And probably you remember like around 5 years ago, Microsoft and also other vendors, but Microsoft was like, I think, one of the first, start to promote a zero trust strategy. Even if the idea of zero trust was pretty old, it wasn't that popular until Microsoft started to really promote it for their cloud. And now more companies try to make security much tighter. And what currently I can see in the cloud, we are moving back to the some kind of so we move back to the restrictions. So if in the past companies thought, okay, I will not go to the cloud because of I have my network that I trust, then we start to use more cloud and took less took how to say it better. We were a bit more relaxed about resource in the cloud, but nowadays I'm not saying that companies moving back to on premises. No, that's absolutely not correct. But we are trying to properly segment and let me find a better word for that. So we are applying more restrictions on the how users can use the cloud services. Let me give a quick example. It will not be it's not the same as it was before, but a quick example. So when we start to move to like our first one of the first cloud servers that we start use, it's like usually email and storage. And like a couple of years ago, like let's say 5 years ago or so, we could connect to our mailbox from any location, from like if you,
Mhm.
from home, from the office, from the business trip, from any device. Like it can be it could be my personal phone, my personal laptop, and so forth. But nowadays, many companies realize like if they want to implement zero trust, they need to reconsider that those permissions. And now, if you would like to connect to the mailbox, you take corporate device, you connect over VPN, and only from that corporate device connect to VPN. Now you can open your mailbox in the cloud. It's still in the cloud, but this time you can access your mailbox that locates somewhere publicly only from the corporate device connect to corporate VPN. So that's what I observe currently.
Okay. So, there's been a lot of issues now with different things. Like AWS had a significant outage a couple weeks ago, and also Microsoft, I think it was South America region, also had an outage about a year ago now, or maybe it was earlier this year. I lose.
Last week there was an outage of Azure.
Yes, well, there was a significant regional outage, when they had their different regions. So, there's a lot of concerns from the public about, what is happening. Is it because of human error? Because there's been a lot of outages in the past couple of years. When we come down to it, it's the human element still that's causing the problem. There is speculation, though, of the Microsoft one in South America was an AI response, an issue, an automated response that was a self-inflicted gunshot wound, is how some people have speculated of the one that was in South America. But from your perspective, when it comes to these outages, is there measures that these big providers, I mean, we're talking Amazon, we're talking Microsoft, these are major players and they're like the top three, right? Players, well, unless you want to throw an Oracle in there, like top five, they're easily top five. What is it? Where are their shortcomings, or where do you see where can they do better and improve? Because with anything is a continuous process improvement, right? Continual improvement. Where let's just focus. Let's say first Microsoft, and then we'll get to AWS. What are things that Microsoft gets right, and where is there room for improvement? Because we still have these outages.
Okay. So first of all, I would like to remind you the famous phrase of the I forgot the name of the guy. He was CTO, maybe he's still CTO of AWS. He said everything fails all the time. So even if we have this kind of the like the fancy word cloud, it's still data centers with
Mm-hmm.
cables, network, servers, storage, and so forth.
Yes,
And
there's a
it
famous meme that says the cloud is just somebody else's computer, and essentially at its simplest form, it is another, like you said, a data center, a collection of data centers. But yes, obviously there's hardware, there's operations, things break, things need to be restarted, rebooted, reconfigured, and even when you patch, you could have a potential outage. So, but continue.
exactly. And so and of course, the idea of the cloud also they have lots of redundancy for everything. Eventually, once per year, twice a year, you may overlook something, or because of the human error that can quite often, by the way, it happens because of the human errors, like incorrect patching and so forth. It caused the outage, and because the infrastructure is really huge, even the small thing that like maybe in your data in like if you have like a one rack in your data center, you may solve it in the couple of hours, or I mean not even a couple of hours, maybe in the 10, 20, 30 minutes. But because of the data center scalability, even the small things, if they are not planned properly, may cause the outage of the data center, and the recovery will take even hours. And hours for Azure or AWS or GCP is very critical because it will affect hundreds of companies, and might take like and they may get very huge losses because their applications do not work and their customers cannot make an order or whatever it could be. I don't think I can give advices to specific cloud provider because their knowledge and experience much higher than mine or anyone else. So I could just say that based on my observations, most of the outages they had, it was still based on some kind of manual intervention of someone.
Mhm.
So, for example, engineer installed the patches on the network devices, and that patch caused some problems for with the network devices, and now there's no network, so network doesn't work.
Mhm.
Okay, so still servers still operate, but networking doesn't work. That network doesn't work, so there's no way to connect. So most of those outages, they are based on some kind of maintenance that wasn't maybe provided properly. Maybe they just didn't expect that this patch will behave like that.
I usually when a lot of folks are in my office space talking about like the AWS outage and like hey, Amazon's big, they should have like thousands of staff and they should have all of this technology and money's no expense because they're a big company and the expectation of a big company is that they can move faster and get things restored quicker. But you brought up a good point when you're talking data centers and you're talking potentially tens of thousands of people across multiple data centers. There's a lot of complexity, a lot of varying operations that have like a cascading effect, or one level or subcomponent of their operations could actually impact multiple others. And there's a couple things that compete for this I guess restoration priority, or how every piece has to work to a certain degree. So one of the things I usually explain to people is that if a subcomponent of the cloud operations is hindered or hampered or is not at a certain capacity, that it may also not get approved for the next cascading effects. For example, you must be at this 80% or whatever threshold of output throughput to be able to be approved to carry the rest of the function or routines on. So therefore, that can cause hiccups in restoration until something's at a particular capacity or throughput or whatever the measurement that is good for operations, right? Then, like you just said, sometimes bringing and restoring the services back up, the solution may be a 20, 30-minute solution, but because it's like a freight train, that's the other analogy I give people. A powerful cloud service is like the biggest train on the planet moving in one direction, and it takes time to get up to speed and as well as to slow it down. And so, once you just did the fix 20 minutes, if you had to move a big train, trains, they start off real, real slow and they build up speed, right? And that's kind of how it works when a cloud service is interrupted. It could take some time to get back up to speed. And the other issue I mentioned was certain subcomponents aren't up to a particular capacity. It won't allow the next cascading effects of things to go back in operation to restore to full service. So another example of this is like in particular the Prime. I remember the day of that outage, I was not able to access my titles that I purchased in Prime, like on the Prime video service. So I couldn't access my library, and then even the categories or the offerings of movies and TV shows was very limited because it hadn't been fully restored. So, but when it comes to a business, though, it could definitely knock out your operations and business. So we hear a lot about people talking about hybrid cloud implementations where they want to bring some of their compute back into their organization environment, like on-prem or bare metal, as another term they used to use a few years ago. What do you see from your consulting work and from the customers you're talking to? Is there a push to at least have the discussions if it fits for their business to go hybrid?
I would say we first of all, I could fully agree with you with the analogy of the train, and that sounds really perfect. And really, even it's like even small outages might take a while just to be solved just because of this big data centers with lightly spread data centers. And really, company may think about, okay, if I cannot just 100% trust the cloud because even if this cloud has the really good infrastructure, I don't have any. So I cannot. If something goes wrong, I cannot do anything with that. I just need to wait, sit and wait. So if in my data center, at least I can move around and try to do something. So many companies they also they have hybrid cloud even in the beginning.
Hmm.
I would say, except startups that just start right in the cloud, they were born in the cloud. Most companies like that were opened like in the previous century at least, or in the beginning of this century, they had on-prem environment. And they did not fully remove the on-prem environment, and they just add the cloud and start to add more and more cloud. Quite often they had like separation of, let's move first something that can be easily moved to the cloud, like email, storage, OneDrive, Dropbox, whatever you prefer. But on premises, it's quite complicated because you need a lot of storage, and if you move to the cloud, then you had like gigabytes of storage for each user. It's literally unlimited.
Hmm.
Um,
You know,
so the yes,
go ahead.
so those first like simple services for moving to the cloud, they move them first. Also, when it comes to like a corporate service for like applications, like line of business applications, if it serves the customers and like customers obviously coming from outside, then why not try the cloud, because it still needs to be accessed by the customers outside of our company. Then also customers, they have some kind of requirements. So for example, it must work so it must be guaranteed by not really guaranteed, but it must work most of the time. And customer demand also can be flexible. So and cloud give us more flexibility. So they start to move those kind of services. At the same time, there is a data that must stay on premises, and most companies, they do have their policy that say like if we uh, have this kind of classified data, it must stay only in our data center and do not leave the boundaries of our data center. I know there's a like few years ago, some companies they tried to move to cloud only from hybrid. Some of them did it,
Hmm.
but in the last couple of years, I haven't heard of any other attempts for it. Maybe because of the nature of business I work with now, or just because companies start to think more about hybrid and decide to stay on premises because of the more and more regulations applied to us, and there are no guarantees that tomorrow there's a new regulation come up and all your stuff in the cloud will not be compliant, and you need to move something back just because it was changed by your government or by the
Hmm.
industry you work in.
That's a good point. You earlier mentioned, the applications that sit on the cloud as well as the customers getting to those applications. And I was just looking up an outage that Lufthansa in Germany and Frankfurt had occurred because there was some construction work, I believe, civil engineering work that was occurring, and they inadvertently severed a bundle of fiber optic cables with Deutsche Telekom. And so the airport, Frankfurt Airport, which is one of the busier airports in Europe, was
Yep.
completely down. Lufthansa couldn't check in customers for flights. All the booking information was in a data center that was nearby where that fiber was cut. And it was a very interesting thing because they were down for hours and hours and hours, right? So it showed that a major business, due to one fiber cut, was completely separated from the apps and the databases they needed to access for the check-in counters at the airport. So they pretty much disrupted so many hundreds and hundreds of flights because again, one airport couldn't get passengers checked in or couldn't do any connection to that database. It really shows that folks should really think about, when you mention redundancy, usually cloud services and data centers usually have some levels of redundancy. But when you think outside of your data center, you can have all of the backup servers and backup drives and so forth. But if you have a fiber cut and that's your, kind of your eggs in one basket from a network perspective or communications perspective, fiber cuts happen all the time, even in the ocean, right? We get cuts every year seems to be another undersea cable tampered with or cut, and regardless of people's speculation over if it's a nation state action or just ship anchors that have no idea where these cables are in the ocean, or if it's just sharks gnawing on the cables. But a lot of folks don't realize that, in the perfect world, we want to have that mesh network where, like Gmail, for example, if I'm in the States, it's gonna cache my inbox to the nearest data center geographically located to me. If I fly and I get off a red-eye flight in Tokyo, the moment I log into my email, it's gonna be a little sluggish at first, but then it's gonna cache that or replicate my box at the nearest data center that's to me in Tokyo. And so I know AWS, Oracle, and a lot of these other sites do something very similar when it comes to like email services and other data collaborative type services. It tries to do this replication. They have different strategies for that. But when it comes to things like where people got to think outside of the cloud facility, do you see anyone in industry or even if yourself that are doing more analysis on this that's going outside that data center where the cloud resources are and thinking, here's our other choke points, here's other concerns where we may need to plan for more of a mesh or revisit the data replication strategy, if you will.
Um, First of all, I would like to say that I was the person that was affected by different outages. In I would say even in let's call it in my personal life. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was in one of the countries that had the same problem, like you mentioned about the cable, but the whole country lost internet 4 hours, and I
Hmm.
thought that was the worst experience. But this year in Portugal and Spain, like I live in Portugal,
Hmm.
and but this year in April, I'm not sure if you remember that, but in April it was blackout for the whole day in Spain and Portugal, so the whole country did not have electricity. So, and even if you would like to leave the country, you cannot do it because airport is not
Airport's down.
working,
Yeah.
and you can drive to another country. The next country was Spain, and you need to drive through the whole Spain. Probably you will run out of fuel. And if you need to recharge your fuel, first of all, the gas stations were closed because you need electricity to push out the petrol. And also you need to pay for it, and your car doesn't work.
Yep.
And if you want to go to ATM, probably some ATMs still work, but there's a queue for the next few kilometers or miles if you prefer. So I was affected by that. The recent one was in September. I was in London, and when I need to travel back, so the application of so like the provide one of the providers of the check-in system. I don't remember for sure which one, but was hit by a cyber attack.
Mm.
As far as I remember, it was cyber attack. Yeah. And then major airports, including Berlin Airport, London Airport, Heathrow, they couldn't even print the boarding pass. So I had handwritten boarding pass. I think I still have it somewhere.
Mhm.
So it happens all the time, even with the systems that they have to operate without like 24/7 every day, all day long, and where the redundancy is built in just by design. So everything fails all the
Everything
time.
fails, yeah. And like you said, with all the best measures of redundancy and security within the scope of the service, there's the other things that services depend on, such as fiber cables and other systems and telecom providers and so forth. And even inside of the cloud, it could be, a breach of a company from the company into the service. That could be disruptive as well, as you mentioned, cyber attacks. And so, one of the key things that probably the worst case scenario for a lot of these, and it's been replicated in the outages, is a denial of service attack, or AKA DDoS, distributed denial of service attack. But the goal, and when I talk to a lot of folks, people think that denial of service attacks are primarily like flooding the network and slowing down the network, and that can be one of the probably the more common things people hear about. But the number one goal of a true denial of a service attack, denial is absolute stop. So flooding the network, you slow it down, you cause some disruption and maybe some minor outages. But true denial of service is configuration disruption is the first and foremost, and the second is physical destruction. So, for example, when I mentioned the fiber cut, even though that was an accident, a civil engineering construction related accident, there are concerns like nation states could be trying to identify where these undersea cables are and trying to disrupt it. For example, disrupting and cutting internet from certain regions or areas for various reasons, right? And so, like with the case of Lufthansa, now that it was widely known where that fiber run is, that might not have been public information per se. And so now that shows that all of Lufthansa's eggs were in this one basket. And it wouldn't take too much more research, particularly open source research, to find exactly the location of where those data services or the data center, et cetera, for Lufthansa, if it wasn't necessarily in their corporate office. Um, so I guess the point I'm getting at is like, with a concern of a physical disruption or configuration disruption due to a cyber attack, what are some measures that cloud services are working with from a cybersecurity perspective to help defend against cyber attacks, disruptions to hardware configuration, and like I said earlier, with the whole, are they looking outside of the services in regards to true DOS attacks with physical destruction?
I would say here we don't have. So of course, but there are always new improvements in the services that can give you better intelligence, more AI. The AI is a major hype nowadays. So they add more. So like major providers they add more AI services just to make analysis and give you some insights. But when it comes to your question, so as I would say this solution like it's like 30 or something years old to make a risk assessment and just to check how what is the what will be impact of the event and what's the likelihood of the event. Then like they build this matrix of risks and then decide, okay, if we have this kind of likelihood and this kind of impact, what we going to do with that? What is going to be our strategy if someone cut the cable? Is it like is it possible? How or what will be impact if someone cut the cable? And based on that, company decide how to build their redundancy and if they accept this risk or not. So in case of the data center, I would say many companies can just offload this some of the risks to like share those risks with the providers, and there's a high chance that there's a much higher chance that cables of Microsoft will stay safe longer than cables of Lufthansa had. So in that case, we have our own responsibility in the cloud, and we are responsible for the like up for the like infrastructure that we deploy, but not the physical infrastructure, and that will be the responsibility of cloud provider.
Mhm. So lately, when it comes to data centers, and obviously data centers with AI are using lots of power. So AI compute, the more processing and compute, the more energy you have to, and regardless of efficiencies and programming efficiencies and so forth, that is being aggressively developed day by day. But data centers do take up a lot of power, and they also generate a lot of heat. So, folks are somewhat familiar with having cooling systems. China has been putting data centers in the ocean, and there's now talk about eventually putting data centers in like satellites around space, or putting them in space, data centers in space. So have you been having any discussions with folks in the community, or reading about this online? Is there any insights you have on these future, I guess, goals of moving data into space, and moving data? Because space is like I forget the temperature of space, but it's super cold. It's negative, tens of thousands of degrees from what I recall. And then China actively right now putting data centers in the ocean.
I'm trying to stay away from this hype, to be fair, because it changes so rapidly, and then I know the 7 or 8 years ago, Microsoft they also used data centers in the ocean.
Hmm.
So it was like a submarine with bunch of hardware in there, and then they just have it deep in the ocean for
Hmm.
cooling. And so the idea was they just start to monitor what will happen with the fishes around and with the temperature of the ocean. And honestly, after that, we didn't hear much about that. So
Okay. And so
I'm
Google seems to be the one that's leading the space infrastructure to be in space. So it's going to be interesting to see if they start moving forward with this, because again, it would be, another level of raising the compute bar, if you will, or the service offering and the uptime, if you think about it as well. Um,
I'm
so I like to
honestly
take.
sorry for that, but that's interrupting. But I'm a bit skeptical before I see that how it works.
Hmm.
and before start to produce results, because companies say things every day and they promise something. So we for years we live in the eras of marketing. So
Yeah.
they promise a lot of things and then they even forget about what they promised before. So I would like to wait. I would like just to wait and see what will happen, what will be the result. So I'm waiting for results.
Okay. So this is part of the podcast where I like to segue away from the tech discussion and ask start off with my most favorite question I like to ask all my guests. So if we could go back to the very first day that you made the decision to go into IT and cyber, is there a story there that you could share with us of your day one when you made the decision to go into this career path?
Uh,
We don't have to go
my
for too far back, do we? Is it the 15, 20 years? More?
17, I
17
guess.
years. Okay, almost two
Yeah.
decades.
Yep. Yeah, around that, maybe slightly more. So the thing was, yeah, it was a bit more than 17 years ago. Yeah, like 18 or something. So the thing is that for years in my life, I was interested in some public speaking and working with people. But when like, I realized that maybe a bit late, and I was already got the technical degree in IT, and I was thinking, okay, so I need to get another education, and for the so I want to deliver some trainings and develop people skills for people, but I realize I need to have like a skills and education for that, and but it costs money, so I need to pay for it.
Hmm.
So to pay for that, I found a job, and that time I could find a job only in IT because that was my degree. I found a job in IT to pay for my education and about like it was business training
Hmm.
education. And yeah, I started I started in I work in IT, and also I got in parallel my second education. It looked pretty nice for me, and I was close to switch from IT to like fully soft skills trainings. But then it was the year when I was ready to switch. It was year 2008, and you remember that crisis that we had?
Hmm. Global
Yeah,
crisis. Yeah.
global crisis, and that's where companies really start to cut their budgets for the education, for
Hmm.
HR. IT was still more or less okay, but
But all the what they
but
considered extra got
yeah,
chopped real
yeah.
fast. Yeah.
Because yes, the IT was mandatory for the company to work to do their work, and then the education and other stuff was like something optional. It's not that important when you don't like when you have problems. And I really realized, okay, I need to stay here a bit more because if I switch now, I'll probably will lose all the money. I will not get any money. So, and after few years, I still continued to work in IT, and but I want to do that. I still want to work with people, and I start to just come, and I decided to combine, and I found some kind of additional job to just deliver technical training. So if I have already experience in IT, why not to use this passion to share with people, but about something I already know. And I little by little start to work with people and teach them about technical things. That's how it started. And now it's too late to move somewhere.
You're
It's
you're
too
already
late.
all in.
Yep.
Yeah. So along your career, obviously with nearly two decades of experience and working in the industry, has there been like mentors, bosses, colleagues, coworkers, or just others, industry professionals that you looked up to that have had a positive impact or influence on your career? And so the goal of this question, do you want to shine a light on some of those names to kind of pay homage to folks that, hey, this person was really influential on me. This person gave me a chance to do this, and I learned something. I learned so much from this person person in that. Is there any people you like to, just shine a light on their names?
I'm not sure if I cannot recall anyone from in IT, to be fair. Uh, that's a pretty hard question because I work with many people, and some one if I want one or not, but I still learn from them all the time. I cannot recall anyone that that sit with me and say, look, you need to do this, this, and this, and this, one, two, three, four, five. I don't remember anyone from the top of my head. But of course, I learned from many people that I work with, that I speak with, to speak together. For example, where we went in the context of conference, and sometimes I speak with the guys, with other guys, and we co-speakers,
Hmm.
and then they share with me, and I can share with them that we learned a lot from each other, just because, and we also complement each other. So, for example, I'm pretty good in the offensive security, and I really like to show how it works live, and show how to how to compromise things in the real time, how to like move under the radar and don't be detected by XDR and so forth. That may be something new for the person I work with, and this person much better organized than me. So he may, I don't know, create all the hands out, which I hate to do, and he does much better reports than I do. And when we work together, we are a perfect team,
Hmm.
and that kind of stuff. So I always learn from other people, but I can't recall anyone that just sit with me and explain me all the truth, how things work.
No worries. So my next series of questions, this is what I call my moment of levity. So I already mentioned we had like our technical discussion. I kind of want to take a break from the tech talk, and this is just fun questions. They're rapid fire questions, so it's whatever the first thing that pops in your mind. There's no right or wrong answer. So if you'll humor me, I'm going to throw some questions your way, and just first answer comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Okay. Cake or pie?
Cake.
What kind of cake?
In my mind, I have muffin.
A muffin. Okay. Hot or
Muffin.
cold muffin?
Uh, Second.
Hot or cold muffin?
Oh, normal. It's not hot. It's not
Room
cold. It's
temperature.
just,
Okay.
yeah, room temperature.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Hot dog sounds more attractive, but
Okay.
sandwich could be with salmon.
So a
I would
hot
take
dog is not
salmon sandwich.
so hot dog not a sandwich or is a sandwich?
Hot dog. Let's take
Hot
that.
hot dog is not a sandwich. Okay. This one splits the room with IT people. So here we go. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Nothing of that.
Neither? Okay.
Nope, I didn't watch any of those.
Perfectly fine. There's a lot of people in the world that haven't seen either of them. Okay, final question of the speed round is what was the last book you've read and what is your most favorite book of all time that you've read?
So the last book I've read was about AI, surprisingly. So that because when I realized that okay, AI is coming and we need to be ready for that, that was about ethical hacking for of large language models. And that's what I currently I don't want to say working on, but I'm also improving my skills in that area.
Hmm.
Because if we had on-prem, then cloud, now we have new challenge AI. So that was like one of the last books. Books of all the time. You know what? Uh, I have the some books. I think that one of the book that maybe had the most influence on me when I was like much younger. It's Somerset Maugham of Human Bandage. It's not about BDSM bandage. No, it's like that's about the life of the young man who is growing and trying to find himself in like his profession and his place in the world.
Hmm.
That would be the most correct. And so
Okay.
maybe when I was on that position, and maybe it impressed me most. that age. So I still remember it.
Okay. If you could get me the links to those books like on Amazon, I'll make sure they're in the description below. So for you that's watching right now, just hit pause on this video, check out the links for those books below. So let's say someone's watching right now and they're like, "Hey, I want to get into, pen testing cloud security. I want to get into where would be either a YouTube channel, a website, what's a resource that you would say, "Hey, just Google this or go to this site, go to this YouTube channel and you could start your path of learning."
All right. So honestly, one of my favorite resource with lots of techniques and methodologies is called Payloads All the Things. It contains lots of basic things. So there you may find the different reverse shells. There you may find different previous collection methods, and they also have methodology about the cloud pen test as well. If
Okay.
you're if in from the perspective of the pen test,
Mhm.
that's the GitHub with lots of techniques. But generally speaking, when you pen test something, you need to know how it works. Of course, not you cannot maybe know how it works from inside of the data center, but you need to know how to operate with this. So if you want to pen test so if you want to be a pen tester, like you need to know how the networking works and how the application that you pen test work, and the same about the cloud. So if you would like to pen test Azure, AWS, at least you should be aware of the like what kind of services they have,
Mhm.
what potentially may go wrong with those services. So for example, if I know that there is a service called let's say storage, what potentially go wrong with the storage? Maybe some data might be exposed in the storage because they didn't block the public access for the storage, and now if we enumerate we can find out some hidden data on the storage. So you need to know how those things work first.
And
And
folks,
what Yeah,
all the major cloud providers do offer free training. AWS has free training. Actually, AWS has two training sites, which I'll have the links for them below. Microsoft has a tremendous technical library of free training and credentials and certifications, even that you can pursue as well. I'll have a link for that as well. And I believe Google also has a lot of documentation as well. So I'll have all the three major, and I'll even have the Oracle. Oracle actually has a lot of training as well. So I'll have those four cloud providers, all their trainings in the links and in the description below.
they
Um,
also provide trials, so you can try that. So you can subscribe to the like to get a subscription, like some kind of amount of free resource that you can try.
There it is, and you can get your hands dirty right away. Sergey,
Exactly.
we could talk for forever and ever, and I do want to respect your time that you've given us today. A lot of us professionals, even though we have a demanding, day job, consulting work, speaking at conferences, and doing all the work that you do for industry, but a lot of us professionals do make time to either contribute our time, money, or energy to volunteer causes, charities, nonprofits that are doing some good work in the world. So, like for me, for example, one of my favorite charities that I support financially is St. Jude's Cancer Research Hospital. And then for some other folks, it's like projects like Wounded Warrior Project and so forth. Is there any causes, charity, volunteer organizations that has like a place in your heart that you really believe that they're doing great work in the world that you want to, what I say is shine a light on them and just kind of bring some attention to the great work that they do in the world?
Um, Usually when it comes, so I don't work with them directly,
Hmm.
but usually when I like work with the companies and the different providers and the conferences, they they contribute to different charity organization, and I usually do it through them.
Hmm.
Because I cannot always verify the authenticity of the organization, but the guys that I trust to, they do, and I
Hmm.
usually do it through them.
Awesome. So we've reached now the end of my agenda questions. And so right now, I like to give my guests the final word. And when I mean the final word, it doesn't have to be about cloud security or pen testing or cyber IT. It can be about anything you want to talk about. But, whatever you want to talk about, the final word is yours.
Nothing can beat hands-on.
Short and sweet.
If
So,
you if you if you if you would like to learn something, do it. If you would like to be professional something, do it. Just do it, do it, do it.
well, love it. Right and to the point. Sergey, thank you so much for being a guest on the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I really appreciate your time being here.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you everyone. See you online. in our Summer the conference. Bye
Awesome.
bye.